Revealed, 10 spine-chilling encounters from haunted deep Appalachia, sinister secrets exposed. The night seemed alive with whispers, echoes of the past intertwining with the present as Sarah wiped down the counter at the diner. Outside, shadows crept under the flickering streetlights, like ghosts from old legends. Her heart raced. She could almost hear the voices of the vanished children, the ones no one dared to speak about, wrapped in the misty horror that engulfed their Appalachian town. Dark clouds loomed overhead, stirring the oppressive air, and Sarah felt the weight of many eyes upon her. "Did you hear about Tommy?" a truck driver muttered. The word slipped through the greasy air like a knife. "Wandered into the woods and disappeared. They say he never came back, that something took him." Her stomach churned as she listened to the hushed conversation weaving around her like a web. The diner, with its cracked booths and dusty jukebox, felt smaller, trapping her within its history of tragedy and despair. It felt cursed. Every night was the same, a grim cycle of diner hazards, a drunk arguing with his stale coffee, a mother whispering secrets, and a clock ticking down the minutes, marking the slow passage of time like an unseen predator. And then, she noticed her phone light up an anonymous text that chilled her to the bone. "I see you, Sarah. I know where you go when the sun sets." Her fingers trembled over the screen, dread pooling in her gut. No one else noticed her tightening grip, her breath hitching, as she fought to keep the darkness at bay. Just a prank, she told herself, though her heartbeat begged to differ. As she wrapped up the shift, the night wrapped itself around her like a heavy cloak. The drive home was always the worst part. Each sway of her car felt like a lullaby to the fear gnawing at her. But then she saw it, a flat tire. Panic gripped her, and she knew she was stranded. The bus stop loomed ahead, a beacon of nothingness, and the darkness whispered cold secrets she wasn't ready to hear. Mia and Jake huddled close, eyes wide and searching the shadows, sensing the fear radiating from their mother. With each passing moment, the surrounding woods seemed alive. Branches creaked like old men sharing burdens, the wind howled softly, mocking her every anxious breath. "Mom?" Jake's small voice broke through her haze of dread. She remembered the stories, tales of lurking danger wrapped in friendly faces, and she steeled herself against the looming fear. There were things out there, creatures twining in the shadows, feasting on fear shared among neighbors, masquerading as friends. Desperation clawed at her, and fueled by instinct, she ventured into the woods. The trees were thick, rooted deep in ancient myths, their gnarled branches clawing at the night sky. A crunch underfoot set her heart racing. The air felt charged, every breath heavy with the weight of all that had happened before. "Stay close, kids," she whispered, though her own voice felt foreign, trembling amidst the silence. "Before we continue, I need to tell you something important that's happening. YouTube has been making changes to their system and many people are missing notifications from channels they follow. If you're enjoying the content, click the bell and select all notifications so you don't miss future videos. And if you can leave a like, it really helps me with reach. Seriously, it makes a difference. Oh, tell me in the comments where you're watching from. I'm always curious to know who's on the other side of the screen. Now let's continue. Just then, movement flashed at the corner of her eye, a figure cloaked in shadows. Her breath caught. From behind a tree, a figure emerged, grinning sinisterly with familiarity. Who could it be? Her gut twisted with recognition and fear. The connection between Tommy's disappearance and her perilous night began to twist into something dark and inevitable. Who could she trust in a town layered in ghostly secrets? It dawned on her whatever threat haunted her dreams had crept too close, the line separating friend from foe dissolving like fog in the morning light. Would she expose the truth before the monsters claimed her children? As the air thickened with tension, she stood ready at the precipice of horror, eyes blazing against the night's chilling embrace. The figure stepped into the pale moonlight, revealing a face both familiar and haunting. It was Danny, the boy from the diner who had once shared stories about the woods that surrounded their town. But his usual smile was replaced by something sinister, an unsettling glint in his eyes that sent shivers down Sarah's spine. "Mom, what's wrong?" Mia whispered, clinging to her as fear dripped from every word. Jake squeezed his sister's hand tightly. Danny? Sarah's voice trembled. What are you doing out here? She could feel an uneasy ripple in the air, as if the woods were holding their breath, waiting for her response as he stepped closer. I wanted to show you something important. But his tone was hushed, too quiet, as though the trees themselves might overhear. Important? The word tasted bitter on her tongue. Her instincts screamed for her to pull the kids back, to flee from this encounter. What could you possibly want to show us? But Danny didn't answer. Instead, he gestured for them to follow. The shadows twisted as he turned, leading them deeper into the woods. Heart pounding, Sarah hesitated but felt her children tugging at her, their wide eyes searching for reassurance. She took a deep breath and followed, rhythmically stepping over the dark roots crawling along the ground. Each step seemed to drag them further from the safety of their nightly routine. The air thickened, and the whispers of the woods grew louder, stealing snippets of conversations, muffling her rational thoughts. I don't like this, Mom, Mia whimpered. Me neither, Jake whispered back, eyes darting around them, scanning each shadow. Just stay close, she urged, her voice strained. The deeper they went, the more alive the woods felt, alive in a way she couldn't quite describe. It wasn't just the rustling leaves, but a pulse, a rhythm in sync with her racing heart. Danny stopped suddenly, turning back with that smile that now seemed dangerously wide. We're here. Before them lay a clearing, illuminated by the strange, silvery glow of moonlight. In the center, an old, crumbling stone well jutted up like a lost dream, its dark opening yawning like a mouth. What is this place? Sarah's voice was barely above a whisper. Where all the lost things go, Danny said cryptically, laughter tainted with madness bubbling just beneath his calm facade. They never really leave. They just wait. The shadows around the well twisted like serpents, reaching out, crawling over her feet. Panic ignited within her as she realized this was no ordinary well. The weight of the night pressed down, and a sense of dread filled the clearing, palpable and suffocating. Danny, we need to go, she said, turning back urgently, pulling on her children's hands, but Danny only laughed, the sound echoing unsettlingly through the trees. It's too late for that, Sarah. Don't you see? You've come too far. Jake gasped, pointing into the shadows behind Danny. Mom! There's something moving. A chill wrapped around Sarah's spine, wrapping tighter as she turned and stared into the darkness. Shapes began to form, looming figures that danced on the edges of her vision. Mom! Mia shrieked, her voice cracking, but it was more than panic. It was the cry of pure terror ringing through the silence. The woods stirred with an awakening, shadows melding into something grotesque. Sarah could feel it closing in. The danger was no longer lurking, it was here. And they were trapped. What do we do? She barely breathed the words as something lumbered closer, twisting through the trees, but as the darkness approached, her vision narrowed, fixated on the well. It felt almost alive, beckoning her with an enticing danger. Something ancient and powerful loomed behind the surface of stillness. Danny! She screamed, help us! But he only stood there, smiling, watching as nightmares began to drown them all. Would they escape the grasp of the midnight woods before it snatched them away? Or would the well claim their fates, deep and unyielding? As shadows coiled around her like serpents, the only thing she felt was the ground giving way beneath them, pulling them into the abyss. Suddenly, the ground trembled. Sarah stumbled as a root snagged her foot, sending her crashing to the damp earth. Mom! Mia's terrified voice pierced through the chaos, but Sarah could only gasp. The shadowy figures grew closer, their forms distorting in the erratic moonlight. Get up! Quickly! Sarah hissed, scrambling to her feet. Jake and Mia caught up, eyes wide and breaths frantic. The well loomed above them now, and the air thickened as if the entire forest breathed in tandem with it, waiting, anticipating. Danny stood at the edge of the trees, an unsettling silence stretching between them. His figure seemed to flicker. "You see, Sarah? They want you," he whispered, voice dripping with a malevolent sweetness. "They've been waiting for someone to hear their cries." "No, no." She tore her gaze from him, searching for a way out, but the forest seemed to twist and warp. "This isn't real." She tried to convince herself, tried to shake off the unnerving pull that lured her back toward the well. A deep growl echoed from the shadows, low and throaty, reverberating in her chest. Shapes began to detach from the dark threshold, drawing forth into the moonlight. A horde of twisted silhouettes, all gnashing teeth and outstretched claws, crept ever closer. "Mom! What are they?" Mia cried, clinging to Sarah's leg. "I don't know." She screamed back, panic clawing at her throat. The well felt magnetic, an unseen force calling them closer as though it wanted them to jump in. "Danny, stop this. Help us." Jake shouted, his voice quavering, but Danny only shook his head, his distorted smile deepening unnaturally across his face. "You don't understand, Jake. They're already inside and now, they want a family to keep them company." Heart pounding furiously, Sarah felt the moisture in the air grow thick, almost viscous. "Back away," she ordered, pushing her children behind her. Forcing her legs to move, she took a few shaky steps back, determined to break free from this grotesque scene, but then the ground shifted again. Something solid crashed down beside them, crashing just moments after she attempted to run. It was a figure, half-formed, dragging itself closer with talentless grace. Its skin glistened in the shadows like wet clay, and where its face should have been, there was only a gaping void, pulsing like a heartbeat. It was one of the things Danny mentioned, waiting and watching, and now it was hungry. "Run!" The command burst from Sarah's lips. She grabbed Mia and Jake, pulling them roughly forward as dread screamed through her. "We have to get back to the path." The twisted shapes lurched toward them, skimming the ground with every frantic step. Chains of shadows wrapped around their legs and arms, pulling them back as they fought desperately against the lurking danger. "Mom! I can't," Mia cried, panic flooding her voice. "Hold on. Don't let go." They burst into the clearing, but the well loomed ominously behind them, whispering promises of despair. Sarah could feel the insatiable pull intensifying. Suddenly, everything went silent. The air stilled, the creatures frozen in place, the world suspended in a horrific breath. "Time to choose, Sarah," Danny's voice sliced through the silence now distorted, echoing through the woods like an unholy chant. "What will you sacrifice to save your children?" She stared into the darkness swirling beyond the well, her heart racing as the shadows writhed in anticipation. There was no way out without a choice. The toll had to be paid, but at what cost? As panic seized her, she could hear whispers rising from the well, a collective voice. It wanted her. Would she risk everything to save them? Or would she become another lost thing, echoing through the night? The choice hung in the air, taut and trembling, ready to snap. And then, as the darkness surged forward, she felt a cold touch at her back, pulling her closer to the edge of the well. What waited below begged for her to find out. The cold grip at Sarah's back tightened, and she fought fiercely against it. She could feel the pulsing heat of the well, a beast waiting to devour her whole. "Let go!" she screamed, her voice cracking under the weight of fear. But that voice, that siren song from the inky depths, only grew louder, wrapping around her mind and heart like a vice. Jake yanked on her arm, pulling her away from the well's edge. "Mom! Don't go near it." His eyes darted to the figures closing in on them, their grotesque forms shuddering with malign anticipation. Was it the fear or the otherworldly hunger in their eyes that inspired his trembling voice? "Run, Jake! Mia! We have to get somewhere safe." They darted back into the chaos of the forest, the trees now twisted and gnarled as if trying to trap them. Every snap of a branch sent fresh waves of adrenaline coursing through Sarah's veins. She clutched her children tighter, their warmth a flicker of hope in the oppressive dark, yet the creatures, fueled by sinister intent, surged behind them with an eerie harmony. They moved with unnatural speed and silence, the shadows seeming to stretch toward them like highway signs guiding them to despair. "Where are we going?" Mia wailed, her small voice nearly breaking Sarah's resolve. I don't know." The truth flared in Sarah's heart like an ember amidst the chaos. She hadn't been able to think straight since the figures emerged, their call echoing in her mind. All she knew was that they had to put distance between themselves and the well, away from Danny's taunted offers, away from the impending choices. Suddenly, a low growl rumbled from behind. Her instincts ignited, whipping around to see the nearest shadow lunging toward them, neck elongated, mouth gaping open like a cavernous smile, teeth black as bottomless pits. "Move!" she shouted, and they veered left, deeper into the thicket. Then, out of nowhere, a shriek pierced the air, sharp, anguished, almost human. Instinctively, they faltered. "Do you hear that?" Jake's face was pale, eyes flicking nervously in the direction of the sound. "Don't listen. Keep going," Sarah urged, panic rising like bile in her throat. The whispers crept back, amalgamating into a terrible chorus. They called for the children, promising to take them far away. She could feel the tension rise between them, defined by breathless gasps as the shadows danced closer. Ahead, she spotted a crumbling structure, the remnants of an old cabin swallowed by the ambitious tendrils of the forest. "In there!" she yelled, directing them toward the door that hung off its hinges, creaking ominously as they pushed through. The walls were stained dark with rot, and the chill inside was palpable, a stark contrast to the torment just outside. Inside the cabin, Sarah grabbed a rusted shovel, its metallic chill grounding her even momentarily. Jake and Mia backed up against the wall, their eyes wide with fear, breaths quickened. "What do we do now?" Mia whispered, clutching her brother's hand, their trust in her cracking like dry twigs underfoot. Just keep quiet," Sarah gasped, glancing toward the cracked window. Heart pounding, she watched shadows weave in and out of the moonlight outside. A grotesque symphony rose, a dance of despair and longing, poised to swallow them whole, but beyond the window, she caught a glimpse of the forest of creatures, now gathering with a singular focus. Danny's voice echoed once more, a gnarled promise weaving into the nearby foliage. "Join us, Sarah. Save your children." The creatures writhed in response, and the sound that emerged filled the air with desperation. The weight of the well's whisper lingered like smoke, pressing down upon her. "How?" she muttered, feeling the pull, the choices weighing heavily. Would it be the well, a price paid in sacrifice, or something more? And just as she locked gazes with the writhing darkness beyond, she felt it, a piercing conviction igniting within her. Time was running out, choices loomed large, and one final decision awaited. In that moment, Sarah made up her mind to confront the shadows, but could she muster the courage to break free from the darkness within? Would they emerge from this nightmare unscathed, or would they become part of the haunting echoes that resonated through the night? A singular truth remained: something deep within the cabin was watching them, waiting for its time to reveal itself. The air thickened with an icy dread as Sarah's heart raced. The cabin creaked around them, a living thing, and she couldn't shake the feeling that it knew. The vague sense of being observed snaked up her spine, sending her pulse hammering harder against her ribs. "Mom." Jake's voice trembled, barely a whisper. He squeezed Mia's hand tighter. She felt the weight of their fear, their innocence crumbling under the threat closing in on them. Seconds morphed into minutes in the suffocating darkness. Outside, the creatures scuttled about, their deformed silhouettes intersecting with moonlight, revealing glimpses of stretched limbs and distorted faces. Sarah gripped the shovel with white-knuckled intensity, as if its cold metal could shield them from the horrors lurking just beyond the door. "What do we do?" Mia asked, her voice a fragile thread in the heavy silence. "Are they coming for us?" Before Sarah could answer, a loud thud reverberated against the cabin walls, sending a shudder through her bones. She shot a glance at the broken windows. Black shapes swayed in the mist like branches in the wind, their whispering growing into a rancorous roar. The too familiar taunting laughter of Danny slithered through the cracks. "Join us, Sarah." His voice dripped with malice. "You know what you must do." "No." Sarah's breath came in sharp gasps, panic clawing at her thoughts. "We won't give in." With an unsteady resolve, she turned toward her children. "We'll find a way out. Stay close." But deep down, the impotence of their situation gnawed at her resolve, the unseen weight of the creatures pressing against her. Jake pointed toward a shadowy outline in the corner of the cabin. "What's that?" It was a trapdoor, half hidden beneath a tattered rug and thick dust. Sarah didn't hesitate. "Come on." She hurried toward it, dragging the children along while fighting the uncertainty that gnawed at her gut. The whispers grew louder, wrapping around her like a dark vine. "Mom, what if it's a trap?" Jake's words quaked with fear. She had no answer. The familiar grip of terror twisted her insides. As they reached the door, she slammed her palm against the rotting wood, groaning at the resistance. Gritting her teeth, she managed to yank it open, the creak splintering the silence like thunder. Small beams of a dank underground tunnel stretched before them, and the faint smell of decay permeated the air. It beckoned with a foreboding invitation. "We have to go now," Sarah urged, pushing her children ahead into the pitch-black void. The descent was cold and slippery. Each step echoed, amplifying their fear. The ground felt unnatural underfoot, like it was alive, shifting as if aware of their presence. "What is this place?" Mia murmured. "I don't know," Sarah breathed, her heart thundering. "But I want to let them take you." Partway down, a shriek erupted, piercing through the dark tunnel, raw and desperate. They froze, terror locking their limbs. The sound bounced off the walls, a spine-chilling reminder of the creatures above, closing in. "Mom, please." Jake's voice cracked, fear emanating from every fiber of his being. She could feel his panic feeding into her own. Then came a slithering sound, like nails scraping against the tunnel walls, growing closer. The dark shifted, undulating as if something terrible stirred just out of sight. Sarah could sense it watching them, a presence more chilling than the creatures searching for them. Crouching low, she whispered, "Keep moving, don't look back." But the darkness felt alive, and the sobs of something trapped filled the air. The tunnel was not a sanctuary, it was a prison, an echo of everything they were trying to escape. Something caught her foot, a severe tug pulling at her leg. Penetrating the growing chaos, she turned, fumbling for the shovel as dread cascaded through her. "Mia! Jake!" she yelled, the sound tearing from her throat. The children were a few steps ahead, fear glistening in their wide eyes. Then the ground shuddered, and the thing below let out a guttural growl that was neither human nor animal, a sound so primal it chilled her to the bone. They had traded one nightmare for another. The cabin had not been hiding from the darkness, it had been protecting them. "Hold on!" she shouted, clutching the shovel tightly, the only weapon against whatever was poised to leap from the shadows. But a cold realization dawned on her. What if escape wasn't the goal? What if the darkness summoned them deeper into its maw willingly? As the screams of the past echoed around them, Sarah felt the tunnel closing in, and just as swift as the realization struck her, a silhouette appeared ahead, a figure between their escape and despair, waiting to pounce. Was that hope, or just another illusion to draw them closer to the abyss? The figure loomed as they drew near, a shadowy silhouette that seemed to pulse with an unsettling energy. Sarah's breath hitched in her throat. She could make out its shape, tall, elongated, with limbs that twisted unnaturally. The darkness surrounding it seemed to shimmer and ripple, alive and hungry, like a predator ready to strike. "Mom, please." Jake whimpered again, his voice trembling as he grasped Mia's hand tighter. The air thickened, charged with uncertainty. "Stay back!" Sarah shouted. She raised the shovel, the cold metal feeling feeble against the encroaching terror, but it was all she had. The figure remained motionless, and she sensed a strange stillness settle over the tunnel, absorbing the world around them. Then, the figure stepped forward, into the faintest sliver of light. Relief washed over her momentarily. It looked like a man. Dressed in ragged clothes, his face was gaunt, almost shapeless, as if it had been shaped by despair and suffering. But the eyes, those hollow voids, were wells of darkness that seemed to pull her in. "Help us," the man rasped, his voice a hollow echo, barely a whisper against the backdrop of silence. "They're coming. You have to run." But Sarah hesitated. Danger danced in her mind, flipping like a coin, trust or flee. "Who are you?" she demanded, keeping the shovel raised, heart pounding against the fear wrapping around them. "Please. I can show you the way," he urged, stepping closer, desperation written all over his stretched face. "I know how to escape, but they're right behind you." Suddenly, the ground trembled beneath them, and the walls of the tunnel shook as if in response to the man's urgency. A guttural roar echoed from the depths below, a horrific sound that made her skin crawl. The darkness shifted, revealing undulating masses writhing just out of sight, hungry for escapees. Sarah felt Mia's grip tighten and Jake's small frame shudder next to her. The creature's growls clawed at her resolve. "We have to go. We have to trust him," she yelled over the chaos. With a frantic nod, she turned them toward the man. "Lead the way." The man gestured into the murky gray. A twisting path lay ahead, a narrow squeeze between jagged rocks. "Quickly. Squirm through before they come." They dashed, every ragged breath filled with the weight of looming dread. As they slipped past the jagged walls, Sarah felt a clawing at her heels, a wave of pressure, frantic, pulling her back. She stumbled, fear threatening to spill over. "Keep moving," the man urged, his voice a sharp crack against the howls growing closer. Just as they wedged through the tight space, a flash of movement caught Sarah's eye. A dark form surged right behind them, and without thinking, she thrust the shovel back, the metal slicing into the obscured shape. A hellish screech erupted, a sound dripping with pain and rage, and Sarah felt a jolt of hope surge through her. They emerged into a wider cavern, gasping for air, panic igniting their lungs. But the horror was far from over. Stalactites dripped with a thick, dark liquid that pooled around their feet, a grotesque warning. The man turned to them, his eyes wide with panic. "This isn't safe yet. We need to keep moving." But as he spoke, a chilling realization crept into Sarah's mind. How did he know the way? Why was he down here? In that moment, his figure shifted, his features blurring as shadows danced across his face. "What do you want from us?" Sarah demanded, a knot of fear tightening within her. The man smirked, an evil glint in his hollow eyes. "Freedom comes at a price, and not everyone is meant to escape." With that taunt hanging in the air, the cavern trembled once more, and from the darkness erupted a wave of shadows, drowning out the light, the dim hopes they clung to, and just like that, a horrifying thought crossed her mind. What if they weren't actually the hunted? What if they were the prey all along? "Run! Now!" Sarah screamed as the shadows surged. But where would they run when the darkness had no end? The only thing echoing in the tunnel was a frantic chorus of screams, their own. Haunting cries lost in the void as they bolted further into the unknown. The shadows swept in a ravenous tide, engulfing them with an oppressive weight that threatened to crush Sarah's spirit. Her heart pounded in her chest, a wild drum signaling her panic as they darted deeper into the cavern. The dark figure's laughter echoed behind them, a chilling reminder that escape was far from certain. "Keep moving. Don't look back," she urged, pulling Mia and Jake along, the urgency of her voice shattering the silence around them. Her feet pounded on the damp ground. The drips from the stalactites above resonated like a morbid metronome, counting down to their doom. With every step, the air grew colder, wrapping around them like icy fingers. The walls of the cavern seemed to close in, shifting, guiding their steps but also confining them. The darkness here felt alive, humming with an energy that sent cold shivers up her spine. Suddenly, a low rumble thrummed beneath them. What was that? Mia gasped, casting nervous glances over her shoulder. Just keep going. Sarah shouted, desperate to maintain their momentum. She couldn't afford to let fear shake her resolve, but the shadows thickened, twisting into grotesque forms that taunted her out of the corner of her eye. She could swear she saw faces, contorted in eternal anguish, mouths opening and closing silently as if begging for release. Jake stumbled, his small body giving way to terror. "Mom!" he cried, his voice tearing through Sarah like a knife. She instinctively turned, crouching to scoop him into her arms, but the shadows flickered, their presence boiling and surging, hungry to reclaim what they once took. "Move! Now!" she shouted, adrenaline coursing through her veins as she pressed forward, clutching him tightly. The horror of the cavern felt as if it was breathing down their necks, suffocating hope with every wretched intake. Ahead, a faint glimmer flickered, a potential exit or another trap laid by the lurking dark. "There! I see something!" Mia shouted, pointing toward the pale glow. "Don't stop!" Sarah barked, pushing ahead. She could almost taste escape, the air crackling with possibilities and the bittersweet smell of freedom, but then the ground shook violently, throwing them off balance. Stones rained down from above as an angry roar ripped through the tunnel, shaking them to their core. They toppled to the ground as debris fell around them, the shadows swirling like a tempest, fueled by something primal awakening in the depths. "Get up! Get up!" Sarah screamed, the panic urging her to action. She felt Jake clutching her neck, his breath hot against her skin, and that small connection fueled her determination. She yanked Mia to her feet, pulling them both into a sprint toward the light. As they neared, the glow brightened, transforming into a vivid hue of blinding white. But could it truly be freedom? The figure dressed in rags loomed back in her mind, warning her of the price of escape. And all at once, they burst through the threshold, crashing into a clearing that sprawled out before them. But fear quickly morphed into dread as Sarah realized they stood on the edge of a precipice. Below them lay nothing but a vast abyss, swirling shadows cloaking the depths. The very ground trembled, and the darkness beneath pulsed like a living thing, beckoning them closer to its maw. "Mom!" Jake cried, his small hand slipping from her grasp. "Hold on tight!" she yelled, grasping for him as the edges crumbled away, revealing a gruesome drop into the unknown. She felt Mia's fingers intertwine with hers, but the shadows shifted, threatening to pull them down. "It's not over yet." The raspy voice of the man echoed from behind them, a taunt that chilled her blood. "The choice is yours, to leap into the void or return to the hunt." In that moment, uncertainty washed over Sarah like an icy wave. Leap into the abyss or confront the horrors waiting in the tunnel? A choice weighed with consequences, a decision that could alter everything. With shadows twisting around them, Sarah took a deep breath, prepared to make the decision that would determine their fate, when a new sound echoed. Through the clearing, a faint, familiar lullaby drifting in the darkness. What could it mean? Was it a promise of hope, or another trap laid by the monsters lurking in the shadows? In the grip of that haunting melody, dread pooled in her stomach, and their fate hung by a thread, each heart-pounding moment drawing closer to the edge. The lullaby flowed through the air like a mist, wrapping around Sarah's heart and freezing her in place. The soft notes cut through the chaos, familiar yet twisted by the cave's dark embrace. Jake's hand slipped from hers, the tremor of impending doom reigniting her panic. "No!" she cried, reaching out just in time to grab his wrist, the warmth of his pulse grounding her in the moment. "What is that?" Mia whispered, wide-eyed, haunting melodies echoing off the cavern walls. Shadows danced in anticipation, and the darkness around them swirled like a tempest, looming as if the cave was shifting, ready to consume them. "Stay close!" Sarah shouted, urging Mia back into a tight circle. "Whatever it is, it's not right." The echoes twisted, taunting laughter intermingling with the lullaby, a cruel reminder of their peril. The edges of the precipice crumbled further, groaning under the weight of desperation. With every passing heartbeat, an unseen force tugged at them, a pull toward the abyss that threatened to swallow them whole. There, beneath the depths, the shadows writhed, as if something ancient and hungry awaited their fall. Then the song shifted, the notes turning sharper, more discordant, momentarily masking their fear with a rush of nostalgia. "Mom, is it Grandma?" Jake's innocent hope stung Sarah. Fear and disbelief gripped her heart tightly as she dared to imagine the impossible. The safe, loving lullaby of her mother had no place here. "No, Jake." It's but the words stuck in her throat as the melody wove in and out of the shadows, distorting into sinister harmonies. Eyes darted, searching the darkness, but only endless black met her gaze. Still, the shadows pulsed, almost inviting, a twisted promise of belonging or oblivion, when suddenly, a flicker of movement caught Sarah's attention. Turning her head, she saw a mass of shadowy figures gathering at the periphery, their forms contorted and grotesque, writhing with a hunger that promised anguish. They were close, too close. "Let us go back," Mia whimpered, her voice rising in pitch, trembling as she tugged at Sarah's arm. "We can't stay here." Desperation clawed at Sarah. Would they risk the uncertain stride back into that cave, or take a plunge that could lead to salvation or doom? The man's voice echoed inside her head, endlessly calculating, weighing their fates. The lullaby swelled, and its crescendo churned inside her like a storm. "Can you hear it?" Jake asked. His wide eyes shimmered, entranced by the sinister beauty of the melody now enveloping them. "No. It's a trap," Sarah shouted, a violent shiver ripping through her. "We have to hold on." But even as she clutched them tighter, the shadows continued their hungry dance, beckoning. The lullaby twisted again, morphing into cries that spiked her heart with sorrow. Reaching back into memories of safety, she imagined her mother's face, filled with warmth and love, someone who would never lead her to darkness. That thought broke her reverie, pulling Sarah into the moment again just as the ground shuddered beneath them. "Listen. We need to jump. We don't have time." The abyss below churned, shadows grasping at fragile hopes. Each excess tremor threatened to shatter their grip, as despair pooled beneath them. "On 3. Sarah yelled, courage flooding her like adrenaline. The shadows lurched forward. Time stretched, the lullaby twisting into a chilling mockery as they teetered. 1, 2. The ground below rumbled violently, spitting stones as howls echoed through the cavern, drowning out the lullaby's grip. 3. They leaped, the moment stretching infinitely, hearts racing as they plunged into darkness. Would they find light or become one with the shadows? The choice was behind them now, only the descent remained, and in that terrifying void, something else awoke. A darker laugh threaded through the chaos as their cries of desperation faded into silence, but then, a cold breath swept across the void, whispering promises and threats all at once, and a glimmer of an eye opened in the shadows, watching them descend. Falling felt both endless and immediate, like plunging into a void where time had no hold. The darkness swallowed them whole, its weight pressing down, dragging them further from hope. Sarah's heart raced, echoing loudly in her ears as her mind fought to comprehend the abyss below. Then, a jarring thud shattered her thoughts. They landed hard on something soft yet unyielding. Pain shot through her legs, but adrenaline drowned it out. Groans followed her, confirming she wasn't alone. "Jake! Mia!" she yelled, positioning her hands on the damp ground, struggling to find them in the thick darkness. "Right here." Mia gasped, her breath shallow, sounding tight with fear. Sarah reached out, fingers grazing Mia's trembling wrist. Relief surged through her. "Are you okay?" "Just scared," Mia whispered back, her voice barely a tremor over the ominous silence. "Me too," Jake added, trembling against Sarah's side. They huddled, breaths mingling in the darkness, as shadows held their breath too. The lullaby, now a distant echo, left a lingering chill in the air. Sarah squeezed the hands of both her friends, fighting to keep their connection alive when the shadows around them felt alive, whispering promises of despair. "Is this the end?" Jake asked, voice wavering. "No." Sarah's reply was resolute, though doubt clawed at her. They weren't in the cave anymore, but this place it felt wrong, like stepping into an old photograph, both familiar and twisted. Echoes of the cave's infernal lullaby rippled around them. Sarah listened as familiar memories twisted into grotesque visions. Laughter warped, stretching into something that sent shivers down her spine. "What's that?" Mia blurted, her voice breaking the heavy silence. The shadows seemed to curve around them, drawing closer. "Don't look at the shadows," Sarah snapped, trying to keep her voice steady. They're trying to trick us." The shadows swayed as if understanding, thickening like a storm cloud, thick and dark. The air grew colder, icy tendrils sliding across Sarah's skin, dragging the warmth of hope away like a thief in the night. Blinking furiously, she tried to make sense of her surroundings. Suddenly, like a burst of film, images slammed into her mind, screaming faces, hollow eyes staring straight through her, and beyond them, something glimmering with malice. Her heart raced as she recognized the figure's lost souls, bound to the shadows. "Sarah, what's happening?" Jake whimpered, sensing her rising panic. "There's something here." "Something waiting," she managed, her voice shaking. She could feel the shadows writhe in answer, hungry and expectant. A guttural growl reverberated through the void, rising from somewhere deep within. Solid ground began shifting beneath them, the soft substance transforming into something sharper, jagged, like broken glass. A scream tore from Mia's lips. "Run! We have to get out." "Which way?" Sarah shouted, fear gripping her as she struggled to orient herself in the darkness. Then, just ahead, a sliver of light appeared. It pulsed gently, a beacon cutting through the oppressive blackness. "Over there!" Sarah cried, her voice fueled by desperation. They scrambled forward, feet pounding against the shifting ground, a desperate race toward the light. Yet, the shadows lunged, fingers stretching from the darkness, brushing against their skin like icy whispers, promises of despair echoing in their minds. "Join us," they hissed, voices seductive and insidious. The shadows coalesced, forming a wall of despair that loomed, hungry and eager. "We won T!" Sarah yelled defiantly, heart thundering. The light flickered, revealing more shadowy figures swirling behind. Each face bore the mark of torment, twisted in agony, mouths open in silent screams. Suddenly, the light flickered again, brilliantly, stark against the darkness. "Go!" Sarah screamed, pushing her friends ahead of her. But as they scrambled toward the light, the shadows surged, reaching for them, clawing to pull them back. Just as they were about to cross the threshold, the darkness roared in fury. An unseen force slammed into Sarah, knocking her off balance. "No!" she cried through gritted teeth, fighting to reach for Jake and Mia, who were now nearly engulfed by despair. "What is happening?" Jake's voice faded, swallowed by the cacophony of howls and screams that filled the air. The ground trembled again, and Sarah felt herself slipping. The light flickered, waning, and she screamed for her friends, but terror echoed back at her. With all her might, she focused on the light fading before her, knowing it was their only chance. But the darkness pulsed around them, angry and relentless. Just before it closed in completely, Sarah saw them, two glowing eyes peering from within the shadows, sharp and menacing. "What are you?" she shouted, voice raw, hoping for an answer or perhaps a merciful end, and then, as if answering her question, the shadows surged forward, swallowing her scream whole. In that moment, all hope seemed lost. But then, an unexpected sound broke through the faintest whisper of the lullaby, a dark promise resonating deep within the void. Where would it lead them next? In the suffocating void, Sarah held her breath, the lullaby weaving through the darkness like a soft thread, pulling at her heart. It morphed into an agonizing echo, blending nostalgia with dread. Clenching her fists, she gritted her teeth, ready to fight against the darkness that sought to devour them. "Get up!" she roared, adrenaline rushing back into her veins. "We can't give up now." But as she turned to the light again, it flickered wildly, shadows dancing on the edge in a cruel tease. The thousand eyes from within the darkness glared, hungry, sinister. Each moment they hesitated drew the shadows nearer, the acrid scent of fear filling the air. Just as despair threatened to root her where she stood, the shadows stilled and whispered, "Join us." "No." Sarah howled, shaking her head violently. She tightened her grip on her children's hands. "We're getting out. Together." As if they could sense their mother's resolve, Jake and Mia clutched her tighter, defiance igniting in their small forms. The air shifted, the energy vibrating with anticipation. They charged toward the pulsating light, every step heavy yet fierce. Shadows lunged, clawed hands reaching out to snatch them away, but Sarah's determination ignited a sudden fire within. "Keep pushing. Don't look back," she shouted, her voice a whip crack against the night. Jake and Mia screamed, their small voices lifting against the oppressive shadows, fueling Sarah's strength. They were close now, the light pulsed like a heartbeat, drawing them in. But then, a horrific roar emanated from the depths, shaking the ground beneath them. "They won't let you go," echoed a twisted voice, and the shadows howled in approval, swirling hungrily around them. "We have to jump," Sarah yelled, glancing at her children. The abyss behind them spurred her instincts. It was now or never. "On 3. 1, 2, 3. They leaped together, propelled by fear, their bodies cutting through the darkness toward the light. A blinding brilliance enveloped them, and for a heartbeat, they hovered in a space between worlds, then they tumbled forward, landing hard on cool earth. Sarah gasped, scrambling to her feet, surveying their surroundings. They were in a clearing bathed in silver moonlight, the sky breathtaking and vast above them, no shadows lurking, no whispers haunting. She turned to her children, confusion and fear flickering in their eyes. "Are we free?" Mia asked, breathless. "I think so," Sarah whispered, but uncertainty twisted her heart. Her instincts warned that peace rarely came without a price. Suddenly, a soft voice drifted through the air, lingering like a caress. "You did well to escape." A figure stepped out from behind a tree, ancient yet strikingly familiar. It was her mother, the warmth of home rushing back into her chest. Tears welled in Sarah's eyes as she staggered forward. This wasn't just an illusion. The lullaby she heard echoed her mother's love enveloping her like a cloak. "Mom," she breathed, disbelief coating each syllable. "Sweetheart, you have broken the chains that bound you," her mother whispered gently, the ethereal glow surrounding her shimmering brighter than any dream. "But the darkness," Jake murmured, stepping back into Mia, the fear still etched in his small face. Her mother's smile widened, casting away remnants of despair. "It lingers, but you have the strength to resist. Alone, the shadows prey upon fear, together, you have broken through." Sarah felt the rush of her mother's love washing over her, a shield against the shadows that sought to reclaim them. "Together," Sarah repeated, looking at her children. "Always together." But a chill pricked at her heart. Did that mean the darkness wouldn't return? It wasn't just a chase, it was a cycle, an unending hunt. "Will we be safe?" she asked softly. Her mother nodded. "You must remain vigilant. The shadows will always seek those who harbor fear. But remember, you wield the light. Love and unity are your strongest weapons." In that moment, they all felt an overwhelming sense of strength, the bond of family forming a protective barrier around them. They were no longer just a mother and her kids, they were warriors against the darkness. "Let us go home," Sarah said, resolute and firm, squeezing her children's hands. They turned together, stepping forward into the clarity of their new dawn, leaving behind the murky depths they had escaped. The night sky twinkled with stars as they walked, and though the shadows could still whisper, they found hope coursing through their veins like an unstoppable force. In their hearts, They carried the strength of love, a truth unyielding in the face of darkness. As they took their first steps back towards home, Sarah beamed, a new light guiding them through a once shadowed world. Now I need you to feel this urgency. Subscribe immediately to the channel so you don't miss future exclusive stories. Smash that like button now, feed the algorithm, and help the community grow. Flood the comments section with your reactions and theories about this gripping ending. And don't wait even one more second to share this video with at least 5 friends who need to see this conclusion. Only true fans understand how important your support is. Let's keep this narrative alive together.